Welcome back to Clarity Over Chaos. Today, I want to talk about something that I believe a lot of people experience, but they don't always have language for. Most of your confusion is actually an identity issue. And a lot of people think they are confused because they do not know what to do next. They think they need a better plan, more confirmation, more time, or even one more conversation from a friend, a family, or a wise counsel. But many times the issue is not that there is no direction. The issue is not that you do not have an answer. It is that you are trying to find direction while disconnected from who you truly are. And when identity gets buried, clarity gets harder. So in this episode, I want to break that down. I want to talk about why confusion is often deeper than decision making, how identity affects clarity, and what it looks like to start coming back into alignment with your true self. So grab your paper, grab your notepad, grab your pen, and let's dive in. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings around confusion is that people assume confusion always means they do not know enough. It has nothing to do with your intellectual being. But sometimes confusion is not a lack of answers. Sometimes it's the presence of too much noise, too many opinions, too much pressure, too much self-doubt, too much comparison, too much fear of getting it wrong. And when there is that much internal and external noise, it becomes difficult for you to hear clearly. So what people often call confusion is actually interference. It's the loud noises. It's too many answers, too much direction, too many opinions. And it's typically the result of trying to process life through your fears, through your pressure, through your pain, through your performance. And that kind of confusion cannot be solved by another tip. I want you to truly understand that another tip, another affirmation is not going to solve the internal disconnect that you have. That is why I truly believe confusion is not just a strategy problem. It is the root to your identity. It's how we get to the point of who we are, how should we operate, who do I need to become in order to walk in full alignment, right? And so your identity shapes how you interpret everything around you. Imagine some of us are operating from a survival identity. And so if you are operating from a survival identity, the things that you do, it shapes what you tolerate, it shapes what you pursue, it shapes what you believe you deserve, it'll shape how you even show up in relationships. And most importantly, it's going to shape how you make decisions. You are a person who operates in a survival mindset, then look around you. 9 times out of 10, it will be a manifestation of chaos. God did not call us to operate out of a survival mindset. So when you are pursuing things, when you are believing things about yourself, believing what God has spoken over you, when you choose relationships, right? When you are making decisions, check how you are operating. Check where you are operating from. Because when you are disconnected from who you are, everything starts feeling harder to discern. And this is where a lot of people miss the internal signs, right? Those signals that says, hey, too much going on. It's chaos. You need clarity. You need to get back into alignment. This is not operating in a, a peace state of flow. Because it starts looking like you are trying to figure out what fits, but you do not feel rooted. And that is the worst feeling ever. You want to fit in, but you don't feel rooted. So things around you start to change. Things around you start to feel like chaos. But when you fit into a place, then you are rooted in that place. That is why you can have options in your life and still feel confused. And you can have great opportunities presented to you and still feel stuck. You can know what is available and still not know what aligns with who you are and where you are called to be. Because overall, clarity is not just about having information. It's about having an authentic identity and how that information aligns with who you are. There are signs that manifest when your identity is not rooted and when confusion is basically rooted over. I don't know if I want to say the word rooted a lot. When chaos is stronger in clarity. How do you know when your confusion may actually be rooted in your identity? One sign is that you start second guessing everything. Every simple decision feels heavy in your life. You keep circling the same questions, you find yourself in the same patterns, the same cycles, and you repeatedly keep doubting what you already know. Another sign is that you constantly need outside validation. You need someone else to confirm your every move. You need someone to clap for you every time you do something. You keep asking people what they think. And let me say this, outside wisdom is not always bad. Scripture talks about wise counsel, but it becomes detrimental to you when you no longer trust your own internal clarity and you find yourself going to other people first before you go to God and before you have confidence in yourself in making that choice. Another sign is that you shapeshift depending on the environment. You show up one way here, another way there, and after a while, you do not know what is actually you and what is adaptation. Many times we find ourselves adapting to the environments that we are placed in, and 9 times out of 10, you're not always placed in it. You put yourself in it. Let's be real. Trying to find where you fit in. You're trying to find your environment. But when we start adapting, it almost seems like what's the word? Manipulation. You begin to manipulate. You begin to people please. You begin to start operating in a space and a personality that is less than who you are actually called to be. And so sometimes confusion looks like constantly feeling pulled in different directions. You have to learn, and I'm going to say this stern, you have to learn. If you are having a hard time discerning what you actually want versus what God is leading you towards, versus what you picked up from pressure, fear, or expectation, that is a moment for you to slow down. That is a moment for you to understand and see, like, am I truly in alignment? Because something here isn't feeling right. What you picked up from pressure, fear, or expectation doesn't have to be the end all be all for you. To take a moment, seek God in your transition and ask for your next steps. Version of you is ending, forming, there can be a period where things begin to feel very unfamiliar. You begin to question everything and everyone. And if your identity was heavily tied to roles, titles, relationships, or being needed, that's that people pleasing. Transition can feel like confusion when really it is literally exposing where your identity was anchored and where God is trying to uproot the very thing that will cause you to kill the destiny word that is on your life. A lot of people do not lose themselves overnight. I don't believe that your identity just, one day you go to sleep, you wake up the next morning and you lose who you are. No, I believe it is a slow burning process. Identity gets buried very slowly. It gets buried under performance, under people pleasing, under survival mode, even under repeated heartbreaks, those disappointments, and that ugly word fear. Sometimes you become who you needed to be in order to survive a season, and that is okay. But when you have to function under those very things, that version of you, although it helped you to function, I want you to understand this. Function is not the same thing as alignment. And there comes a point where what helped you survive starts getting in the way of who God is calling you to become. So now you're trying to make clear decisions, but you are making them through layers of self-protection over functioning. And yeah, of course that feels confusing. Why would it not feel confusing? When you're trying to function and do things from a identity that God never called you for, just think about it like this. If you're functioning out of fear and self-protection, but God is calling you in front of people. He's calling you to speak. He's calling you to motivate. What would that do for you? How would you even show up authentically for those people if self-protection is a covering, right? If fear is a covering, then that means you will not fully and wholeheartedly operate in that calling or in that space because you have these blocks. I hope y'all getting what I'm saying. So, because of what we have learned, because of what we hear, we have to learn that some of what we are hearing and some of what we have learned is not true. It's not our true selves. And it's that thing that I said, that word is not a small word. It is a big word. That big word, fear, it is defense. It is conditioning, and it is old survival language. So sometimes you're not struggling because there is no clarity in your life. You are struggling because clarity has to reach you through too many layers. It has to reach you through an identity of fear, defense, conditioning, and survival. Of course, it is going to be hard to maintain alignment if that is what you're operating in. And this is why I talk so much about identity and transition, because transition has a way of exposing what was holding you together. Listen, y'all, I am in a season of transition. This year, 2026, I am in a space where God is exposing my survival identity, for a better lack of words. November the 12th was my last day in corporate. God called me to leave corporate to go full time into purpose and ministry. That's a whole transition. That's a whole episode in itself, but that's a whole transition, y'all. That's a whole transition season. This season is teaching me what I depended on. This season is teaching me what my identity was rooted in. This season is teaching me habits. And I say that strongly. It's teaching me habits that I had. And I'm like, whoa, hold up. And it's causing chaos. It is literally causing so much chaos. It is literally uprooting things that I thought were normal in my life. It's uprooting belief systems. It's uprooting words. It's uprooting language. It literally felt like chaos. But God began to give me clarity because He began to expose everything that was holding me together that wasn't, that wasn't conducive to the environment and to the person He was calling me to be. When something's shifting, when a role changes in your life, when you begin to outgrow an old environment, confusion can rise to the surface immediately. It will literally shake the table of what you thought was actually normal. But not always because you are in a lost season. It's not because you're doing something wrong in its entirety. It's because what used to define you no longer works. And sometimes because the identity you leaned on is being disrupted, because you can no longer hide inside of old patterns and still feel peace, that is when that uncomfortable feeling would come. That is literally an invitation. That is where you're able to answer the call. That is where you're able to actually unravel all those false identities, all those old roles, and the misaligned version of yourself that can't go into the season that God is taking you in. That version, it may have helped you survive, but it may not be the version of you that can lead your next season. And clarity is going to begin there. It's not when you have all the answers. It's honestly when you stop trying to fit in and you stop trying to make everything fit to your old ways, your old patterns, old cycles, old identities, and you start allowing God to uproot and create a new environment for you to fit in. That's where alignment breeds. So, what do you do if you realize your confusion may actually be an identity issue? The first thing is slow down. Please slow down long enough to tell the truth to yourself. Ask yourself these questions. Self-reflection is so important. Ask yourself, what actually feels unclear right now in my life? What feels misaligned? What am I forcing? And where am I exhausting the very thing that God is calling me to release, right? Many times we hold on to things and God is saying, let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. I just remixed Elsa because I think it's really let us know. But y'all get my drift. Let it go. Separate yourself from the fear-based identity and align yourself with the full identity God is calling you to step into, that clarity identity. And then ask yourself, when you start being placed in situations, when you start being in rooms, when you start looking for new relationships, ask, did I choose this from alignment or did I choose this from survival? And the third thing is notice where you perform instead of living. Where are you managing an image? Where are you over functioning? And where are you staying available for things that cost you your peace? I don't know about you, but that one hits hard because we, especially as women, there's just this expectation that we gotta be so strong and that we have to stay and hold it down and ride or die till the wheels fall off, no matter if it costs us our peace, no matter if it costs us our mental or our spiritual wholeness. I want to release you from those shackles. And I want you to ask yourself, where am I staying available for the things that cost me my peace? And the fourth thing is return to what is true. What values have been consistent in your life? What kind of life actually reflects who you are becoming, not just what you have learned to maintain. Truthfully, the question should be, where do I see myself in the next 5 to 10 years? And is the choices that I'm making reflecting that? And is the people that I'm allowing in my life reflecting that? And is the identity, how I am showing up, reflecting that? My habits, how I speak, my thought processes, is it reflecting that? Then lastly, let clarity come through reconnection. Get back to the basic, get back to the beginning. God has really been showing me that in this season. I needed to get back to the beginning. There was a point in my walk with Christ where I was seeking on my face, just chasing. It's like that chasing moment. It's me really trying to connect. I was trying to connect with God. I was trying to get myself plugged in. And many times we do go through life changes, different roles, different titles. Things happen, you become a different person. But that is the very moment where we can, just like I said, reconnect. When you reconnect back to the plug, when you get back connected, that's when clarity comes. And it doesn't have to be forced. It comes by you being honest. It comes by you resting and allowing yourself to grieve what no longer fits. We as a society do not know how to grieve being out of place. I will intentionally make you grieve a certain thing because grieving isn't always about sadness. It's about facing the reality. It's about being true and honest with your situation. It's about loving who you once were, but being able to cultivate a newer version of yourself and leaving space and room for that moment. Hear me out, people. Hear me out. So, allow yourself to grieve what no longer fits. Grieve the friendships, grieve the old titles, grieve the old position, grieve the old traditions and the culture and the way you grew up. Grieve it. But most importantly, when we talk about reconnection, when we talk about getting over the chaos within our identity and coming back into full clarity of who we are, it comes by coming back into relationship with yourself and with God in a deeper and more truthful way. It's that vulnerable space and that vulnerable moment of saying, who am I in this season? Where are you calling me to? And where are you calling me to rise out of? So I really want to say this to the person listening who feels frustrated with themselves for not being clearer right now. Listen, you're not broken because you feel confused, and you are not weak because you need a reset. And you're not behind because what used to make sense no longer fits. Sometimes confusion is not failure. Sometimes it is exposure. It's exposure of the weeds. It is showing you literally where you've been disconnected. It is showing you where identity needs to be restored and where your alignment matters more than just your appearance. Your breakthrough is going to come not by finding a brand new answer or asking your best friend. It's going to come by being honest. It's going to come by coming into agreement with what has been true the whole time, and is that you are who you are and you are who God has called you to become. Catch it. Thank you for being here with me on Clarity Over Chaos. I'm Ashlyn, and if this episode helped you, share it with someone who may be in a season of transition, identity, or rebuilding, and I'll see you in the next episode. Love y'all.